From insane clutches to mind-blowing mechanics to creating the most iconic League of Legends play of all time, these are 9 times when Faker shocked the world with his skills, beginning first with his insane Shurima Shuffle prediction during his most recent Worlds appearance in 2023. After escaping a chaotic Swiss stage and barreling through LNG with a 3-0 sweep in the quarterfinals, Faker and T1 found themselves pitted against the seemingly unstoppable titans of JDG, who were just 2 series away from completing the first ever Golden Road in League's history. So to say that this series would be a highly anticipated one would certainly be an understatement, and thankfully for the fans, it definitely lived up to its hype. As after T1 stomped the first game, JDG responded by playing Cassante and winning game 2, setting the series scoreline at 1 apiece headed into game 3. However, unlike the first 2 games, this third match would certainly be more on a knife's edge, with the gold lead never strongly favoring either team throughout, though it would eventually become clear that Ruler's lethality Varus was posing a real threat to both Faker and T1. And after managing to pick up kills on both Owner and Zeus, JDG took Baron and began to march down mid lane, looking poised to overwhelm T1 and inflict some serious damage on their base. That is, until the unkillable Demon King saw a crack in the armor of JDG's seemingly impenetrable team coordination, and piloting his famous Azir, used his shifting sands to turn the tides.
Inside. TP coming in, Faker looking to make the play against Ruler! Owner goes in! And again, the combos are clean! The hostile takeover is damn well hostile!
But not only was this play impressive because of Faker's predicting of Ruler's flash, but off the back of this insane pick, T1 managed to wipe the dominant JEG off the map entirely with a 5-for-0 ace, and would go on to march down mid lane and close out the game, putting them up 2-1 in the series and eventually allowing them to end JDG's Golden Road and advance to Worlds Finals. And while later we'll be getting into an even crazier time in which Faker's Azir was responsible for costing JDG a spot at Worlds Finals, turning our attention to League's other international event in MSI, we can see that even in the Grand Finals, sometimes all you need to do is sit back, let the king work, and take notes. You see, during the finals of MSI 2022, when a series facing off against who else but the mid-season titans RNG, Faker and T1 were looking to prove that their already all-star lineup could not only dominate the LCK, but could also take home the trophy on the international stage. However, the series got off to a rocky start for this world-class roster. But after being cut to shreds by Bin's 13-0 Gwen masterclass in Game 1, in the second match, Faker's Lissandra helped boost the already advantageous Zeus ahead of the RNG top laner. However, this lead wouldn't exactly work out as planned, as once again, kills onto Owner and Zeus led to T1's opponents looking to score themselves a Baron buff with their advantage. However, this time around, T1 wasn't willing to let this objective just fall without a fight, so despite being placed in a 3v5, Faker sent himself headfirst into the den of RNG, managing to not only create an incredible setup for his bot lane to follow up on, but also managing to inspire one of MSI's most iconic casting lines in the process.
Faker looking to get in from the back of the pit. Frozen Tomb available for him. RNG calling T1's bluff, and Faker finds them all! Gumayusi, Carrier, and Faker will not go quietly into the night. Form is temporary. Faker is forever!
And though of course we'll be diving into more of Faker's greatest plays on the international stage later on, for a moment let's rewind things back to just over 5 years prior, during week 6 of the 2017 LCK Spring Split, in which SKT found themselves faced off against fellow top dog KT Rolster. Now headed into this series, both teams were tied for first place in the region, with each side boasting a couple player names you may be familiar with. And while game 1 was a relatively low kill 42-minute long bout that ultimately ended in the favor of SKT, game 2 began in nearly the exact opposite fashion, with KT dragging the 3-time world champs across the map through expert rotations, building up an ever-increasing pile of gold, and doing everything in their power to remove Faker from relevancy. However, even while staring down an over 13,000 gold deficit, in addition to a recently acquired Baron buff, Faker didn't count his team out yet, as despite being 0-3 on Orianna, where his teammates saw fear, he found opportunity.
Faker has been out of position because it's very hard to have position, and we hear an ultimate popped and we see a turn.
Yeah, dredge line coming through. Big
equalizer!
Big shockwave comes through. Faker just absolutely devastates the ranks of KT Rolster. A triple kill for him. Pawn trying to get out with his life, but it just doesn't look very likely. And good God, off the backside of the Baron, SKT blow the game wide open.
Now, while things initially seemed as if Huni had just overstepped to the point of becoming a free pick for KT, thanks largely in part to SKT Wolf's defensive tidal wave, Faker was able to quickly recognize that his opposition was currently CC'd in a highly compacted space, a dream scenario for any champion such as Orianna who thrives under such conditions. But even when it comes to the playstyle of piloting primarily single target assassins, Faker has consistently proved that not only can he serve as a burst oriented menace, but that in addition to being the team's one-shotting machine, he is also willing to show off his juggling skills too when they're needed. And I suppose there's no better example of this beast-slaying prowess than in SKT's face-off against Fnatic in Day 2 of All-Star 2014's group stage, proving that Faker Zed has more than just one trick up his sleeve. After roaming to pick up a pair of kills and a string of back and forth bot lane skirmishes, the then reigning world champion found himself in prime position to lead his team's damage as the shadow shifting executioner. However, with Fnatic's Xpeke on his iconic Kassadin pick, this strategy would be easier said than done, especially since neither team could seem to find a significant advantage over the other. That is, until Impact and Bengi overstayed their welcome in the topside jungle, leading to Fnatic picking up a pair of quick kills and granting them a golden opportunity to take Baron, which at the very least would allow them to put themselves in the position to regain the lead over SKT. However, Faker of course had other plans, and after slashing away Fnatic's smiting capabilities while running his own world skin nonetheless, this rising star demonstrated that long before his times of Lissandra setups, he was still turning the Baron pit into his personal Thunderdome, putting the team on his back and taking down some of the game's biggest names in the process.
Faker's looking to maybe try and make a play. He's gone in. He's gone for Cyanide. He wants to try and pop him down. Maybe enough. He gets Cyanide down before the Baron drops. The Baron is so low. It's going to get stolen away by Faker. This is tragic for Fnatic. Peke's going to get dropped there. What sublime play by the Season 3 World Champion.
And even though earlier we of course discussed Faker's Azir exposing a flaw in the positioning of JDG during the semifinals of Worlds 2023, if we rewind back just 1 year earlier, we can see that not only had Faker made an even more clutch play with the Shuriman Emperor, but this time it would also serve as the final nail in the coffin for the championship dreams of these LPL legends. You see, during the semifinals of Worlds 2022, once again pitting these two tournament favorites against one another, fans around the world were treated to yet another nail-biting best of 5, packed with world-class gameplay and constantly shifting leads until the series was ultimately brought to a 2-1 scoreline, with one game standing between Faker and his first finals appearance since 2017. And even though his early game was ultimately nothing too noteworthy outside of a 3-man Emperor's Divide in response to an attempted dive in mid lane, after a 5-on-5 skirmish around Rift Herald, Faker's all-too-famous Azir skills began to come online with an immensely aggressive catch-out onto Kanavi and missing that would allow T1 to salvage the play and buy them time to grow their advantage. An advantage which, just a few minutes later, they turned into one of Worlds 2022's greatest moments, as Faker swept JDG's feet out from right underneath them, leading to yet another now iconic call by Freak, knocking JDG out of the tournament and ultimately punching T1's ticket to San Francisco to face off against DRX in the finals.
As the ulti comes through.
Another 3-6-9 finds death number 4, but the re-engage from Belvet is almost enough, but it is not! Faker in the mid lane, the unkillable Demon King rebuilds his throne with the skulls of his enemies!
And if we're on the topic of some of the most iconic series in League history, we of course have to mention the legendary series between SKT and G2 during the semifinals of MSI 2019, which at the time of writing still remains the 5th most watched League series of all time. Headed into the potentially series-ending Game 4, SKT found themselves once again up 2-1 in this back and forth series. However, the start of this game wasn't initially going too hot, as G2 managed to pull ahead with their strong early game, making plays on side lanes and snowballing their advantages. However, as you may recall, during that year's MSI, Sylas was one of the most meta-defining picks of the tournament, holding a 73% pick ban presence in the play-ins and a 100% presence throughout the course of the main stage, so naturally, when you give one of the strongest meta picks to the greatest player in the game's history, you should be ready to be impressed by some jaw-dropping plays. And with SKT's chances at winning slipping out of their grasp, Faker, courtesy of a stolen Gnar ultimate, was looking to prove that it would take more than just side lane dominance to take him out, and in doing so, he was looking to put on quite a show.
5 members of G2 trying to push forward, but the minion wave is getting obliterated.
Oh!
Massive! Manages to steal the null. Faker turns around. He hijacks G2's chances. Listen to that crowd as SKT turn it around.
Now, in fairness, the mechanics of this play were cool, but not anything too crazy, or at least compared to the moves that Faker was pulling on perhaps one of his most iconic off-meta picks of all time, with his pioneering of Riven mid lane, a pick that not only tore up opponents in solo queue, but also shattered ankles in the professional scene as well. And there's perhaps no better example of the SKT mid laner's mechanical prowess on the champion than in Game 3 of the LCK Grand Finals in 2015, in which Faker was just one game away from once again lifting the LCK trophy. However, just because a title was in sight didn't mean that Faker was going to hold back at all. After picking up a kill on an overextended enemy Thresh, the unkillable Demon King was able to dish out a fair amount of damage to chunk out Nagne's Cassiopeia, and with his support Wolf on the way and nothing but a Doran shield to his name, the SKT duo went for the dive, and in the process, Faker pulled out one of the cleanest jukes in the history of professional play.
Under turrets, Wolf coming in. Double 6, they get the flash from Nagne. Faker comes in. He's got the ult. He's got the kill.
Now, while Wolf was able to provide setup for this now legendary Riven dodge, there is of course another much more famous highlight involving this duo, in which Wolf's assistance allowed the then 3-time world champion to truly shine in one of the greatest moments of League eSports history. You see, during the group stage of Worlds 2017, Faker and SKT were looking to prove themselves against reigning LPL champions EDG during their first bout of the play-in stage. However, things got out of hand incredibly quickly for the second-seeded Korean representatives, as despite the hype around the match, the first 30 minutes of the game was kind of a blowout to say the least. With EDG being up 10,000 gold, 9 kills to 0, and 7 towers plus an inhibitor, compared to SKT's mere 2 outer turrets, victory was practically guaranteed for the Chinese squad as they went to stop SKT's last-ditch effort to sneak away the Baron for themselves. However, while it both appeared and would make sense that SKT would try and stall out the game by denying such a crucial objective, they used EDG's lack of vision to their advantage, and contrary to the more reserved SKT playstyle, they decided to take a risk, and by weaponizing the element of surprise would ultimately shock everyone.
Saving the Drake round, he got two already. Bang is hiding, he's coming. Bang looking to come in, here comes your initiation, they're right through! Oh my god!
Faker Shockwave will find them all, and SKT with a hell of a response will take down 4.
With Wolf's knock-up, Huni's silence, and of course Faker's shockwave, SKT took this perfect storm of a teamfight and somehow managed to mount one of the largest comebacks in League Pro Play history. But of course, now it's time to break down the play you've all seen before and shouldn't be surprised to see as number 1 on this list.
So Faker may be in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves. Faker, what was that?
Faker with a huge play, the QSS.
Now, even though this play is without a doubt in the conversation for being the most well-known clip in all of esports, something that seems to be lost on a lot of people is that beyond the insane mechanics of Faker's Zed, the context behind this play is also incredibly important to why these moves were just so sick. You see, SKT found themselves in a best-of-5 matchup facing the KT Bullets for the OGN 2013 Summer Finals, and despite having opened the series with back-to-back losses, this up-and-coming team managed to pull back even in the series with a 2-2 scoreline headed into Game 5. And though it's no longer present in professional play, back then during Game 5 of a best-of-5 series, both teams were allowed to lock in the same champions, leading to both Faker and Ryu locking in Zed. However, this wasn't the only mirror matchup that led to this play being possible, because as you may have noticed, both top laners locked in Shen, but despite having both of their Stand United ultimates up, neither Insect nor Impact decided to interfere with the fight, which, regardless of this being a good decision on their behalf or not, ultimately it led to the most impressive play Faker has ever pulled off. This has been Simply Spent with Silver Scrapes. Thanks for watching and take care.